On today's show, the Hawks suffer a pretty brutal loss on this Tuesday evening, falling at home to the Blazers in frustrating fashion. We'll get into why the Hawks fell short, how it unfolded, and more, and all that is coming up right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1942 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Tuesday evening into Wednesday here in early April. And today's podcast is brought to you by the folks at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. I also want to encourage you at the top of the show to make us your first listen each and every day. Here at Locked On Hawks, check us out and subscribe to the podcast anywhere you happen to get your podcast. That includes Spotify, that includes Apple. We are also on YouTube, so please like the video on that platform. Subscribe on audio and video if you would like to support the podcast, and tell your friends as well. We'll be diving in today to what became a pretty bad loss, honestly, for the Hawks, 127-113 at home to the Blazers. The Hawks actually fell short enough to be swept by Portland this year in two games. First back in November in Portland, and then tonight at home in a game the Hawks were favored in by like 5.5 points, according to our friends at FanDuel. You know, for me, not a top 5 loss of the season in terms of bad frustration, but certainly above average in that category. A pretty frustrating loss overall. It was tight most of the first half, and the Hawks had a pretty disastrous start to the third quarter that led them to be down by as many as 17 points in the second half. It did get all the way back to 4 in the fourth quarter, but that comeback fell short and ended up losing by 14 points with some garbage time mixed in. And really, what I would say is, like, beyond just being a bad loss for the Hawks, and it is, I want to be very clear about that. This is a game that the Hawks should have won. Portland is not a terrible team. Keep that in mind. This is not your older brothers Blazers that have been really bad the last couple of years. They are 33-43. That's not a great team by any means. They are not very good, but they are competitive. They are athletic. They are long, etc. It's not like losing to the Wizards, but it's still a game that the Hawks absolutely should have won. And there were really two-way issues here, offense and defense. Plenty of problems on both sides of the floor. And I'll begin with the defense first on the podcast, but I could certainly begin with the offense as well. This is kind of an equal opportunity struggle fest for the Hawks in this game. By the numbers, the offense was actually a little bit worse than the defense, but defensively, they had a 115 defensive rating in the game. That's only slightly worse than league average, so nothing disastrous, but it was the way it unfolded. I mentioned in my preview on Patreon, which you can find at patreon.com/BTRolling, as well as in the Locked On Hawks newsletter, which you can find at lockedonhawks.com. But Portland's best area for their team right now is, at least on offense, is offensive rebounding. They are quite good on the offensive glass. That matters for context purposes. It also means that it wasn't a secret that Portland was going to attack the offensive glass and kind of rely on that to build their offense in this game. So I say all that to also lay this out. The Blazers had 19 offensive rebounds in this game, which is a sky-high number. And the headliner is they had 32 second-chance points in the game. For context, that's the most second-chance points the Hawks have allowed in a game this entire season. The previous high, I believe, was 27 or 28. So first time all year long, they've allowed at least 30 second-chance points in a game. And that kind of tells you just how bad of an area this was. On a percentage basis, they have had worse games, defensive rebounding, but not as many second-chance points. So not only did they allow 2 offensive rebounds, but it was the kind of rebounds that they allowed. Lots of direct putbacks, lots of 3-point plays on putbacks. Like, they was just one thing after the other. The Hawks actually play pretty well defensively for a full possession, force a tough shot, get a miss, and then give up a second chance point. And it was that kind of cycle over and over again in this game. That was definitely the lead problem for me on defense, and probably for the entire game. If I had to pick one thing that was probably the biggest weakness of the game for the Hawks, it was that. But it can't all be traced to this. I will say this as well. But the Hawks played very small in this game. And I want to be very clear about this. Being small does not mean you have to be a bad rebounding team. It's not always. I think people tend to over-rely on size as an explainer for why a team doesn't rebound very well. That's actually worth keeping in mind. And I'm not saying it was all that, because it wasn't. But it was very, very rough on the glass in this game. And I think they only played about 28 minutes with either Gay or Niang on the court. So they played 20 minutes of pretty small units. Even a bunch of units actually had even just 4 perimeter players. Like, Zach Ricochet was playing the 4. That's reasonable. But playing either Terrence Mann or Vit Krejci, or whoever you want to say is the power forward in those lineups, playing very small. And that, again, doesn't explain the whole situation, but I asked Quinn Snyder about that post game. Quinn kind of acknowledged they were playing small. I don't really buy the premise that he said this, but like Quinn said, basically the only solution to playing not small is to play Mo. In his mind, that's at least the way he conveyed it, is to play Mo for 48 minutes, which obviously isn't going to happen. But I will just note this. Mo Gay played 11 minutes in this game. So, yes, he's the only guy that I would describe as a big power forward that they have on the roster. But the Hawks didn't even go back to Mo to really try it more often. It didn't work, to be fair to Quinn, when Mo was playing. Mo on the court, and this includes garbage time as well, but he played 11 minutes, and the Hawks were minus 12. So they got beat up. They have like a minus 30-something net rating with Mo on the court. It's not a perfect solution, and I'm not telling you the Hawks would have won this game if they had played Mo more, but it would have been something I would have tried at some point along the way. Elsewhere, they had other problems defensively too. They were not very good in transition in this game. They allowed 28 fast break points. That's the third most they've allowed in a game this season. And to be very fair to the defense, a lot of that was the offense being bad. And what I mean by that is, if you turn the ball over a lot and you're not scoring very much and very efficiently, you let the other team get out and run very often. So it was a combination of poor defense, but also some bad offense kind of bleeding into that. It's one side of the floor is never totally separate from the other one. I will say that. Portland did not shoot it incredibly well in this game, but they did outshoot the Hawks. And with the way the possession battle went, that was not going to work for the Hawks in this game. And speaking of the possession battle, if you're a listener regularly, you will know that I talk about this a lot, but it's just basically what I said by that. Like it's the combination of turnovers and rebounds and who takes more shots overall is usually a good indicator who's going to win a game if all things are relatively equal elsewhere. And the combination basically of the Blazers having 11 more shooting possessions than the Hawks, that's a lot more opportunities to score. You have to shoot the ball really well to overcome that, and the Hawks simply did not. So offensively, as I said before, the offense was actually worse by the numbers than the defense was in this game. A 102.7 offensive rating. That's very bad. It's not like all-time bad, but it's well below average for this Hawks team. And there were basically two main offensive problems along the way. One was ball security. I teased this as well in my preview of this game, but in the first meeting back in November, the Hawks actually had their worst ball security game of the entire year. They had a turnover on more than 26% of their possessions in the first meeting, which is just ridiculous. That's a crazy number that you almost would never see. This was not as bad as that, to be very plain, but they still had 20 turnovers in this game and about an 18% turnover rate. That's way too high, even in a super fast game. And they led directly to 23 points. So that was probably number one issue offensively, was just a lack of ball security. And again, like the rebounding situation, Portland's number one trait defensively is havoc creation defensively, but that doesn't give you an excuse. You still have to know that going in and prepare for it and overcome it. And the Hawks did not do that. By the way, when you're playing small, as the Hawks were, you cannot afford to turn the ball over because you're already small. Like in theory, you're sacrificing size for ball handling and passing and things like that. And that did not happen in this game. The other thing that you can't do if you're playing small, as the Hawks did a lot in this game, is shoot the ball poorly from three-point range. And they did. So that's number two on the list. Number one, if you want to say in some order, 1 and 2 were ball security offensively and also three-point shooting. The Hawks were 7 of 32 from three. That's 21.9%. And they never shot it well at any point in this game. Quarter by quarter, here it is. 2 of 10 in the first quarter, 2 of 6 in the second quarter, 2 of 8 in the third quarter, and 1 of 8 in the fourth. There was never a time when Hawks shooting the ball well from three-point range in this game. I will say this. Trae Young and Vit Krejci combined to shoot 6 of 12 from three. That's obviously great. 50% is a great number. Good volume for those guys. That means the rest of the team was 1 for 20 from three. 1 for 20. And that is 8 players who took a three that were not Trae and not Vit. I would say the biggest part of that it was frustrating as far as you can't really do anything about it because they're guys you have to have make shots. But the 4 guys of the Hawks, I would say beyond Trae and Vit, they take a lot of threes and that missed a lot of shots in this game were Ricochet, Niang, LeVert, and Mann. Those are the 4 guys who are the highest volume beyond Trae and Vit. Those 4 guys, again, Niang, Mann, LeVert, and Ricochet, they combine to shoot 1 of 14 from three. You're going to be in trouble. Especially, again, you can kind of hold up if you do one of the two poorly between the possession game and three-point shooting. But you can't do both. If you're going to get beaten up in the math game the margins, that's kind of what I always say, that you can overcome that with 3-point shooting, as we've seen the Hawks do this year at times. We've also seen the Hawks opponents do that sometimes this year when they've outshot the Hawks and leveled that out. But basically, this is very simple, but it's also not like intuitive. If you don't shoot well from three, you have to win everywhere else. And the Hawks did not do that in this game, simply put. So disappointing for sure. Like individuals we'll get into later on. No one I thought was like brilliant in this game. I thought Trey, for the most part, was good. Dyson had some strengths in this one, but even those guys like had flaws. Vit Krejci was good in this game. But just overall, a maddening result. I think everyone around the team post-game knew it was a bad loss. Nobody said that like in plain terms, but they all know. And especially this late in the year, to go into a game as a 5.5-point favorite and lose it at home is a tough team, because like looking ahead to tomorrow, as we get into later on, Hawks play a tough one tomorrow. It's a back-to-back with travel, and it's a long trip, and that's not a given at any point. So quickly to note this at the top, Orlando and Chicago both won tonight. So the Hawks are now back in a tie with the Magic. Orlando has played 2 more games than Atlanta, so they're technically not exactly tied, but they are tied in the like games play in the games back standings. Basically, Miami is now 2 back of Orlando and Atlanta, and Chicago's 2.5 back. So it's like gotten pretty clumped up together, and basically a really bad night overall in the standings for the Hawks. I don't know when their own loss, but also other than Phoenix losing, which definitely helps in the draft when it comes to the Kings pick. That's for another show at another point. But Orlando and Chicago both winning and the Hawks losing, it's not the greatest night in the world for Atlanta. So big picture, an ugly one, not one that you want to, I'm not saying you have to throw things or that, it's a meltdown situation. It isn't that, but it was a rough night for the Hawks, simply put, and they'll have to try to like bounce back on Wednesday. All right, more to come on this game, including my notes about how things unfolded in the middle of the game, my more granular observations, and then at the end of the podcast, my player-by-player evaluations from this contest. First, though, we're from our partners on the show. Today's show is sponsored by Monarch Money. Have you looked at your bank account at some point and wonder where all of your money happened to go between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, etc.? It's easy sometimes to lose track of your finances, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. Monarch Money is your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances, and Monarch Money is not just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, your investments, and your spending in one place. So you can stop managing your money and start building wealth instead. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much money I was spending on food overall in general, and that's just one example of now things that I could clean up in the future. And I budget now and do so smarter and save more money. And instead of juggling multiple apps, you can also use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan your long-term goals all in one place. And managing your money in conjunction with your partner, if you want to, can be smoother than ever as well. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, stay on the same page without all of the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. And use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year with Monarch Money. That is monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year with Monarch Money. One more time, it's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA. Today's show is brought to you by Prizepicks. Basketball's still rocking and rolling right now, but baseball season is also in full swing. There's no better way to get on the action than with Prizepicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prizepicks, all you have to do is pick more or pick less on at least 2 player projections. If you're right, up to 1,000 times your cash. Whether it's strikeouts or RBI or hits, Prizepicks keeps everything game exciting for you in the baseball world. I'm looking at the offerings every day in basketball, baseball, etc. Prizepicks, including a fun market on whether a first-inning run will be scored or whether a player will hit a home run at any point in the game. And setting up a lineup also takes as little as 1 minute, so it's convenient and easy for you as well. When you win, your payout is quick, safe, and secure with Prizepicks. And I would also recommend taking advantage of Taco Tuesdays, with Prizepicks offers discounts on select player projections for even more value on that Tuesday. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA, $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup at Prizepicks. That is code LOCKEDONNBA, $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup at Prizepicks. Prizepicks, run your game. All right, we'll dive in now to how this game kind of unfolded. And the Blazers were really big the entire game. They had some injury-related absences to Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, etc. And that basically led to the Blazers playing big the entire game. When I say big, it's not necessarily up front always, although Donovan Clingan's a massive human being. It's that their guards are really big. Delano Banton started at point guard for the Blazers. He's like 6'8", 6'9". He's a very, very big point guard. They played a lot of, Chris Murray and Jabari Walker and Matisse Thybulle played a lot of minutes in this game, Shaden Sharp. Like, there's just no one small on the court at any point, basically, for the Blazers in this one. So that kind of leaves the Hawks playing with like Trae Young trying to guard a wing and giving up a lot of size around the floor. Plus, Klingon is a massive person as well, and he was plus 29 in this game. Ricochet, I thought, was a transition monster in the game to begin the game anyway, running really hard as he has been all season long and beating the Blazers on the floor. The Hawks did, one of the bright spots in this game was actually they did actually get out and run a lot. And when they did, Trae Young said this post game, when they did run, they had some success to varying degrees. They had a lot of fast break points, but a lot of them were also inefficient. They actually ran crazy amounts, but did not score as much as they probably should have in some of that stuff. Still, Ricochet was kind of a strength there. Trae actually got hit in the face mid-first quarter, and he was called for a foul, actually. It was also weirdly called a shooting foul defensively on him, but I brought it up because he went to the tunnel basically after that. He was fine, came back in the game, but a small exhale there for the Hawks as he was able to return shortly after that. Rotationally, it was similar to what it was overall on Sunday with Veet and LeVert and Mann and Barlow in the first quarter, and then George Niang played the second quarter, was part of it when he came in. He came in a little bit later as he did on Sunday. He was not as effective today as he was on Sunday, but that's kind of was the standard rotation the last couple of games. The Hawks did close the first quarter pretty well with a 9-2 extended run, but offensively it wasn't special, but Portland scored 2 points in the last 5 minutes of the first quarter. There was a terrible challenge by Quinn, I have to say, that in his small defense, I think the call was wrong personally. I think through that lens, it was like not a terrible challenge because of that. But for me, basically, LeVert got called for a blocking foul on a shot that was not converted. So it would have been 2 shots, but it was a bad free throw shooter for Portland. And it was the first quarter. And it's a very low leverage challenge. It's hard to explain that in some ways, but basically for me, unless it's like a 3-shot foul or one that you absolutely know without a shot of a doubt that you're going to win, first quarter, not a good time to challenge. And basically Quinn ends up challenging it. He loses it and they didn't have another one. So even the expected value of that is just not very high. It didn't change the game or anything like that. Just something I didn't love early in this one. The Hawks did take the ball away from the Blazers a lot in the first quarter. They had 7 steals, but the rest of the game they only had 5. So they kind of settled in from there. The rest of the first half, I thought offensively it was just brutal. I'll say this. The entire second quarter was kind of unwatchable on both teams. It wasn't just the Hawks. Like, it was just like really, really sloppy turnovers, poor passing, poor ball handling, poor execution. Like, it was a mess of a quarter. And that was kind of the consensus on Press Row. Like, I sit with Kevin Chouinard and Lee Ellis. We were all like, what is going on in the second quarter? It was a rough watch as people who enjoy basketball. The Hawks, though, were like in fine shape. They were down by 3 at halftime. The offense was terrible in the first half, but other than Dyson making every shot they took in the first half at the rim and Trae having 10 assists, but they couldn't make a 3, and they had 10 turnovers in the first quarter. Sorry, in the first half. That was tough. As I sort of alluded to earlier, they had fast break points, though. They had 18 in the first half, but that was actually below average efficiency-wise because they were able to run a lot, just not make all the shots. Then the disaster struck in the third quarter. So they came out of the locker room, and they had 4 consecutive empty possessions to begin the third quarter. And that was just the beginning. The Blazers had 4 offensive rebounds in like a 3-minute span, including a couple of there were backbreakers for layups. And then it was overall a 16-5 mid-quarter run by the Blazers when they started making some jump shots as well. Portland had 29 points in 6.5 minutes in the third quarter. 4-5 from 3, 8-11 from 2, and the Hawks were down by 17 or 18. And that was basically like where the death blow was. Now, the Hawks did come back, got within 4, but they never led again, and that was the biggest run of the game. The biggest swing of the game was that first 6 minutes of the third quarter was really, really rough from Atlanta. And again, part of that was tattooed to the Blazers who made a lot of shots at that point in time, but still, process-wise, it was pretty rough. They had some misses late in the quarter as well. Trae, man, I thought Trae was good in this game until late, but he had a hilarious bad mishap in the third quarter. So he gets a fast break that's like a one-on-none. There was a trailer behind him, and I think he got spooked by it. But you have to see the play. Like, he blows this layup basically because he couldn't decide, it seemed like, where he wanted to shoot on the left side or the right side or stop or finish quickly or whatever. He just didn't make a decision and ended up missing it, and it just looked really, really, really bad. Anyway, despite some of the ugly moments, like, they were still within 13. Like, they were kind of hanging around. And then Terrence Mann had back-to-back layups at the end of the third quarter and then at the beginning of the fourth quarter to kickstart a 10-0 run. And the Hawks had 8 points in the first 70 seconds of the fourth quarter. Trae hits a deep 3, and they're back within 5. It's like, all right, they're in this game again. Here we go. But then Portland started scoring again. Trey got into the bonus quickly for the Hawks. Helpful overall, but then Portland made some threes, and there was I would say like a 2-minute sequence in the fourth where the Hawks just could not get a call. And Quinn was losing his mind, and I think he was probably right to be losing his mind at that point in time. Again, not saying that the Hawks lost the game because of that, but it was weird, like the swallowing the whistles for that point of time. There were 2 or 3 like pretty obviously fouled plays that were not called, and then Portland got a call right after that. And the Hawks were already losing, so I'm not saying it would have changed the game, but it was a little bit of a swing, I would say, against Atlanta. And at the end of all that, they're down by 12, 5 minutes to go again. It's like, all right, you're probably in trouble here. They went 4 minutes without a field goal in the fourth quarter. You're not going to win when you're already behind. So things then flew off the rails. They were still like in the game, down 12-ish, 5 minutes to go. Then after that timeout, they miss a 3 and then allow another offensive rebound for a 3-point play. And for me, that sequence was kind of a microcosm of the game, and that the Hawks couldn't make a 3 the entire game, and they also couldn't get a defensive rebound. And that happened back-to-back to basically put the game away. Like, once that happened, they're down by 15 points with 3 minutes to go. Technically not over, but that was, for me, it was like that was the dagger combination. Another missed 3, another bad rebounding situation, and the game is over. So no run came after that, and the end result includes some garbage time. Daquan Plowden got in, for example, and that was that. So, yeah, I mean, overall, the Hawks lost the last 3 quarters. They won the first quarter by 1 point, and then they were -9, -10, -1 in the last 3. And it was really, game flow-wise, a couple of runs, but the biggest swing of the game was that first 6 minutes of the third quarter. Again, one more time, 29 points in 6.5 minutes for Portland. That is kind of why I led with defense in this game. It was not just shot making. It was not just anything, but the combination of poor defense and then not enough offense. And there you go. All right. We have more to come on this podcast, including a look at the awards the Hawks earned actually today, which is kind of looking funny now after a loss, but we'll get into that, plus player-by-player evaluations and more in just one moment. This show is brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like watching basketball live, the energy of the crowd, the sound of sneakers on the hardwood, and maybe even a celebrity sighting courtside if there happens to be in Atlanta a lot. If you want to catch a game in person, that makes getting tickets even easier than ever. The app's new feature, Gametime Picks, takes away all the fluff and shows you only the best deals on great seats. And that means there's no waste of time scrolling thousands of tickets that I actually don't want or don't need. For example, I checked the Gametime app earlier today, and there are amazing deals on huge matchups across the sports world, plus concerts and comedy, theater, and much more. And with Gametime, they have the Gametime Picks feature, and that actually highlights super deals, and they give you the best bang for your buck in that one place. With seat views before you buy tickets, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guarantee, you can book with total confidence at Gametime and take all of the guesswork out of buying tickets right now with Gametime and Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app right now, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account at Gametime and use that code. It's LOCKEDONNBA. That code is LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the Gametime app today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, before we wrap up this podcast, a little bit of a look at the player-by-player evaluations in this one. Not a whole lot of positivity. A couple guys played okay in this game. I thought Terrence Mann had a good stretch in the second half, a couple of big buckets, and was +6 in the game, 7.3 steals, 3 rebounds, but didn't shoot it well. 0-3 from 3, 2 of 4 on 2s. But I thought he was fine, actually, despite the small sample size of bad shooting. He was part of the problem with the shooting, but everybody else couldn't make shots either, so I thought Mann was fine. Karis LeVert. 10 points on 13 shooting possessions. Not great. He was 3 of 7 on 2s, 0-3 from 3, and missed 2 free throws in this game, 2 rebounds, and a steal and a block. I thought Karis was okay, just didn't make shots, like very similar to everybody else on the roster. It did have 3 turnovers. That was part of the problem there. Niang was a non-factor. 3 points on 6 shots, 1 of 2 from 2, 1 of 4 from 3. No rebounds. That's a problem as well. This is not breaking news, but Niang, when he's not making shots, is kind of tough sometimes. And it was not the best night for Niang, to say the least. Don Barlow, 8 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal, and a block, actually. He was +10. That's funny because I don't think Don was very good. He finished around the rim well and did rebound a little bit, but I thought he was not the reason why they were winning when they won some minutes with him on the court. But I thought Don was he had one bad stretch, I thought, in the second half, part of that third quarter melt to some degree, but I thought that he was okay the rest of the game. And I think it's worth remembering, and I said this during the game as well on social media, I get frustration with Dom. Like, he is not a finished product right now. But yes, it's fair to say he's not a very good backup center on a playoff level team right now. That's more than fair. I would just remind people that, like, he's supposed to be the fourth center on the roster. Like, he's not supposed to be playing right now. The Hawks have two of their top three centers injured, and that's why Dom is playing. So the plan was never to have Dom playing this many minutes and playing every game. I think he's done a generally fine job in the role he's been asked to play. But just keep that in mind. Like, you're trying to grade him against a normal, like, backup center. He's not supposed to be that yet. He's 21 years old. It's still on the upswing. But anyway, I thought he was fine overall, despite the one kind of hiccup in the third. The other guy who was actually pretty good off the bench was Vit Krejci. 13 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists. He made 3 threes. Vit's been shooting the heck out of the ball for a while now. It does kind of limit you sometimes defensively. I think he's had kind of a rough defensive season recently, but he's shooting 41% from 3 on the year. One of the only guys that made shots in this game. So, like, he gave some back defensively, but they were +6 in his minutes. So I thought Vit was fine, even though it was a little bit probably too much of him at times in this game for the defensive purposes. But there you go. To the starters, I mentioned this before. Mo Gay, 11 minutes for Mo, despite starting both halves. So basically, the first half, played 6 minutes, never came back in. Second half, played 3.5 minutes, and then never came back in until the game was over. So basically, he played like 9.5 minutes of actual rotation play in this game. And again, to be very clear, I don't think he would have fixed everything, but I would have tried him again because of the lack of rebounding prowess. And look, the secret is Mo is not a great rebounder at this point, but Mo is legitimately 6'10", 6'11", and can rebound in a way that some guys can't at that position. He just brings more size. He did have 2 steals and a block in the game. The secret is, like, offensively, it's very clear that Quinn does not trust Mo offensively. That's really the problem. Defensively, he's come a long way. It does help them. I think the reason why he doesn't play more is the offense. But again, I would have tried him more. There's some gray area there. I'm not sure that would have fixed anything, but I thought he was, like, probably underutilized in this one. Elsewhere, Okongwu, I thought was kind of rough in this game. Like, I don't want to put it all on him because it's not all on him at all, but he was part of the problem with the rebounding and the rim protection stuff in this game. 12 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 block, but was 0-3 from 3 in the game, was 4-5 from 2, but like, just wasn't a huge factor offensively. They didn't really play through him a lot. And then defensively, like, the rebounding was, again, not on him, but like, he was part of the problem. I thought it was a strongly below average game. He wasn't terrible, but I don't think he was very good in 33 minutes. He was still, like, the guy they have to lean on more, obviously, because they just have to, because he's the best option by a lot at center, but he wasn't the best. Ricochet, 9 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks for Zach. He was -28. He was 0-4 from 3, 4-10 on 2s. Not his best night either. I thought he was not physical in the way that he probably needed to be at times. I will shout him out now. He actually won Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month for March. That's actually 2 months in a row for Zach winning that award. And for me, he was the very clear and obvious choice to win that award. I would say this for a while. I think Zach should be neck and neck at the very least with Stephon Castle for Rookie of the Year stuff. I don't know if he will be by the end, but he has earned that placement. Also, Castle had a decent game today, but nothing special, 7 turnovers, etc. But yeah, there you go. I thought Ricochet was not particularly awesome in this game, nor was he like the problem for the Hawks. Dyson Daniels, interesting game here. So Dyson had 22 points and 10 rebounds, which led the team in rebounds, number 2 in points, 3 steals, 2 blocks. Like, he was a havoc creator like he always is. I think he had to have, this hasn't been tallied yet in the stats I have access to. I bet you had 10 deflections. He was just everywhere defensively. So on that front, he was a clear bright spot. He was 11 of 12 on 2s, 0-1 from 3, but that's fine. So offensively, he was not the problem, except for 6 turnovers for Dyson, which is way more than he should be having in a game. When Trey does that, it's too many for Trey, but Trey has the ball a lot more than Dyson and is asked to do a lot more than Dyson. I'm just checking this now. Yeah, this actually tied Dyson's season high in turnovers, which he's now done 3 times. One of them against Boston without Trey, which makes more sense in a game without Trey. And the other one was against, drumroll, Portland. So 2 of his games this year, 6 turnovers or more, were against Portland. So maybe it's matchup or whatever. So I'm not saying Dyson was bad because he wasn't very obviously bad in this game. He was so productive everywhere else. But the ball security is some really rough passes from Dyson. But anyway, he was still good. 37 minutes, not the problem. And by the way, speaking of awards, he just won Defensive Player of the Month for the East. in March. That's number 2 for him this year in that category. He averaged 3.3 steals a game, which is ridiculous for anyone, but it's just like ordinary for him. Like he is averaging that for the season, basically. So anyway, Dyson was great last month. He was good at times in this one, but there you go. And then lastly, Trae Young had a weird one. He was really good. I think he was the best player on the court for like a large portion of the game. And then he had kind of a rough fourth quarter. Trae ended up with 29 points, 15 assists, which speaks for itself in some respects, 2 steals, 4 rebounds, 4 turnovers is actually totally fine for him on large sample size with the ball. Didn't shoot it well inside the arc. He was 4 of 13, but was 3 of 7 from 3 and got to the line 13 times. So 29 points on 26 shooting possessions is not great, but he had more efficient shooting than the team did by a lot, plus the passing. So I thought Trae was good in the game. I thought he was great in the game until the fourth. In the fourth, he was pressing too much, a couple of mistakes, like bad shots, had one errant pass I'm picturing in my head right now. So that brought him down from like a really good game to a pretty good game, despite the massive counting stats. It was not his best work, but not a coincidence also that he was -8 and everybody else in the kind of the big 4 for the Hawks, Trae, Dyson, Ricochet, and Okongwu, they were all -20 or worse, and Trae was -8. So it was the effectiveness with the rest of the starters, honestly, the third quarter stuff, etc. So, man, a bad one for the Hawks. No getting around that whatsoever, and hopefully they will be able to bounce back. 2 quick news things here that are not really that important right now, but still, Dyson Daniels is signed with Adidas. That actually came out like a month ago when he said it publicly on the podium in a Hawks game, but now it's been like announced and reported, so that's out there. And then Trae is now the assistant GM for Oklahoma, which people are going to ask about that, like what his role would be. It probably won't be a ton. I think he's probably going to be maybe like the closer in recruiting, like bringing your big famous former star. But he donated money, I should say, to the program, $1 million. That's cool of Trae to do, obviously. So not a huge takeaway for me, but people ask about that. So there's the news portion. And then the last thing, the Hawks are currently, as I'm speaking to you right now, on a plane to Dallas. A very, very tough travel situation. Basically, that's obviously not the way I would have put that normally, but a bad travel spot, a disadvantage to say the least. Dallas was off today, and the Hawks are flying west for a game. It begins at 8:30, so they'll just give that hour back. But the Mavs are back also to being like a pretty competent outfit. For a while, they were so banged up that they were basically like unable to function. But now that is not the case anymore. Now they still have some guys banged up. Kyrie Irving is out for the year, for instance. But they do have Anthony Davis back. They do have Derek Lively is questionable for the game, but I think he's been back recently. They got Daniel Gafford back. So like the Mavs are now a real team again. No Kyrie hurts them for sure, but an uphill battle in some respects just because of the situation for the Hawks. Our friends at FanDuel right now, again, this is pre-injury report for the Hawks, but we don't know anything about that. The Hawks are currently 4.5-point underdogs at FanDuel as of late Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. So not an impossible spot, but no longer a potential like advantage situation for the Hawks in Dallas. So, and all that losing tonight does is put more pressure on that game tomorrow, because what you don't want to do is get swept in a 2-gamer. And then they do have 2 days off, but you have to host the Knicks, and the Knicks are a team that the Hawks have done pretty well against this year, but the Knicks are good. Like, that's not a bad team. So we'll see how Wednesday goes, but long story short, a rough night for the Hawks, and hopefully that was a decent encapsulation of what transpired. All right, everybody, that's all I have on today's podcast. Please subscribe to the show anywhere you find your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, etc. Please follow us on social media platforms at Locked On Hawks. Follow me at BT Rowland. Follow my non-podcast work at patreon.com/BT Rowland. And we'll sign off now. Thanks for listening, everybody. I definitely appreciate it, as always, and we'll see you in about 24 hours after Hawks Mavs on Wednesday.